how many bamboo do you need in the next years? What is the price you are willing to pay? We gathered some information and we stopped also with that. It was useless because we ended up with the result that we are 200 times short in product. The demand was 200 times larger than what we can deliver. So for us, it's clear the demand is there. The second thing, we hear that already a few times bamboo can grow in Europe. You will see some pictures, more at the stand, you see it everywhere. So that's okay, that we know. The problem, it's not a problem, it's a challenge, it's everything in between. So we started concentrating on the processing because the industry, they need a product, they don't need bamboo poles. There's no market in Europe for 200 million bamboo poles. We don't build houses with bamboo poles. So that's what we did. What did we do up till now? All the countries where you see a flag is where we planted bamboo as a test or really structurally. Fields of ourselves or with partner growers. Because what we know is that as fast as possible, as much as possible, bamboo has to go into the ground in Europe. It takes some years. So that's the mission. So you have all, let's say, what do you call it? North Sea, Atlantic Belt, those countries. You have Greece also, don't forget Greece. And then we have two, where is the pointer here? No, this one. We have two sites where we have the nursery, here and here. In Belgium, we have also a nursery. Belgium is so small that even icons do not fit into the country, so that's actually Belgium. And then we had the opportunity to to use a furniture company, a wood production company, where we can, let's say, play with the bamboo. They have very large dry ovens, till 100 cubes of wood can be dried. They have all the machinery. And secondly, and that's as we speak, we are now studying the plans with the architect. We're going to start building a processing facility in Portugal. Processing, by that we mean pre-processing, so prepare the raw bamboo for the industry. We have some aspirations. So 2,000 hectares of own fields the next 2 years, and then the double with partners. Nice plans, big challenges. What do you need? A good team to start with. This is our, let's say, base management team, and we have a few people, Jan Prince. If you want to know about growing in Europe, if there's one person who has like 30, 40 years of experience, it's Jan. Then we have Hans Friedrich, who also talked yesterday, which was the ex-director general of Inbar. So by that we had a good team, you could say 25,000 hectares of experience all over the world in bamboo fields. Secondly, you need money, the biggest problem for everybody. Since last year we have a shareholder, and that's Hive Energy, and they are actually a UK energy group, but over the years they diversified in different sectors. It's a private-owned company. There are no funds in it, no banks. It's like the Patagonia principle. It's one man who has grandchildren, who earned a bit of money and says, do I leave this world like in the situation like we have now for my grandchildren, or do I take action? They are, for example, they have the first green hydrogen hub in Africa. They are now building the biggest green hydrogen battery in Europe. So it's quite a company. They have like 1.3 billion capital deployed, about 300 people. So we are in good company, and they have more money than we have. That's the most important thing. Why? Because it's really, if I'm going to talk now a bit about the drivers or hurdles that we have to take in Europe to build an industry, the biggest one is capital, because growing bamboo in Europe is expensive. It's the most expensive continent to grow bamboo, I think. Maybe Australia, we are a bit on the same level. But if you have to take into account the 2,000 hectares, we can be open about that. 2,000 hectares, we start after the summer with the capital raise for that. 2,000 hectares with people and processing and everything, that's about 50 million euros investment. So if you ask, why didn't other companies or initiatives do the bamboo in Europe, that's a good reason. And why do you need such big amounts? Because for the industry, you need large surfaces. If you want to deliver to an average processing facility who has to turn all year round, you will need at least 500 to 1,000 hectares. That's a picture of our nursery in Galicia, you know, the one in the country where icons fit in, Spain, that's the one in Galicia. So that's all good, you have a good team, you have a bit of finance, but of course you need the demand, like we said. And the market is based on demand on one side, and the other side on geopolitics, on regulation, that's always the second thing. Interesting to look at what we studied are official INBAR figures. And here you see some very interesting things. What we already knew was that Europe is the largest importer of bamboo products out of Asia, maybe. That's not really the problem. That's what you see. More interesting even is to look who are the biggest exporters of bamboo products. And then you see something very, very odd. Of course, we have China. But then the second largest exporter of bamboo products is the European Union. The European Union exports more bamboo products than Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam together. You see the point? So, and of course it's statistics, you don't have to tell me. I've studied a lot of statistics. To say that, we had one part of our course in statistics. Statistics was a German little book, and it was called How to Lie with Statistics. So, but that's it, we are sure, one thing is sure. Europe is a bamboo product hub. In one or another way, bamboo goes through Europe. In those figures, of course, if you have to lie with statistics, to be honest, IKEA is also in those figures, of course. But still, through Europe, a lot is happening with bamboo. So for us, that was a motivation. If you also look to the figures, those are 2019 figures. If you compare them to 2020, there are some things that you can deduct. China and Europe, they have a normal growth. So in bamboo world, the 5% a year growth is a bit the average. There are also some other trends that we see, and that is the United States for one or another reason, and India in import and export, they are 15% lower. Don't ask me why, it's just something that I saw as a statistic guy. So, as to say, enough fundamentals for demand and market. The second one, and that's an important one, of course, Europe is a very special continent at this moment, in one point, namely everything that has to do with sustainability, and that goes together with, you know, the aspect of local production, local market. That's an advantage for us in Europe. That will help us. Because everything is turning towards bio-based materials, and that also has an impact via the regulation. So it's all about bio-based. And the regulations are helping us in that. And it's not only in bamboo. What I learned recently, for example, if you look at the textile sector, the textile sector is using almost 3 times more plastic than the packaging industry, just to give an example. So a lot of work to be done. The third important point to support our European bamboo story is the whole impact story. And I take a few things together here. You have, of course, the climate goals, but you also have the farming sector. The farming sector always used to be the enemy of the climate. Now that's changing. Now the farming sector can be a very important ally for the climate. And there is where carbon farming is coming into the game. That's what Fred also explained. With the biochar is a very interesting element in that. There are other techniques for carbon farming, but that is something where we are putting a lot of attention to also, because yeah, we need farmers, not only for bamboo, but people are gotten, like we have pushed all the processing out of Europe. Now we know that wasn't maybe the best idea. But it's the same with farmers. If we neglect the farmers, then we really have a problem. So that's a very important aspect for us. But of course, farmers are a special kind of people. They have a special way of treating income and revenue, so some things should be adapted to that. I have to go forward. So there are a few things to do in Europe. You have to plant as quick as possible as much bamboo in Europe. That's one thing. Then the second thing, adapted bamboo species, and that's also an important one. I can say now freely, it's not only balsam that we need. We also need other species. For example, for paper, you need bamboo species with a high cellulose content. If you want to do wood applications, then you need the timber bamboo. So it's not always that easy. People sometimes suggest plant bamboo and you have a wonderful future. Yeah, if it was that easy, it was already done. So the adapted bamboo species important, and that's where Yellow Prince and Vista Verde comes in the game. We are also doing R&D and finding out and making new species who are adapted to the European situation. The same for harvesting, processing, all the same. Like Johan said yesterday, we do not want to copy Asia, we do not want to copy other continents. We have other parameters at play. So harvesting and processing, we are reinventing that. Also the way you install a bamboo field, we are completely rethinking that to adapt it to the European standards. And then a very, very, very important one, product pricing. And there we all have a responsibility. If we come in companies, the first discussion is always, yeah, European, we need that, we want that, we need that label, local, sustainable, blah, 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 blah. But your price is too high, the Chinese price is this. Then we say, I'm sorry. Do you want European bamboo? And that's the thing, there we have responsibility. If we use Chinese prices, there is someone down the line is not paid very well. Why? As you know, land and bamboo plants are expensive in Europe. So how can you use the same sales price? It's not possible. So if we want to be a value chain, if we want to build a value chain, then everybody has to take his responsibility, but everybody should be happy also. Otherwise, you are not building something sustainable. So that's something that we all have a responsibility. It's not only a responsibility. We have our joker of the European bamboo, and they want it. So, and you can only give it away once. So think about that. If somebody wants to buy your bamboo, just poker face, stick with the story, but you have to explain them, of course, why, and you have to explain how can we work together, and you have to explain that everybody can earn his money with bamboo. That's not a problem. The fantastic thing is you have a plant, it can be expensive, you plant it once, but you can ride it off on 100 years if necessary. And then it gets interesting. So the product pricing, also regulations will help us. And now you have the CBAM. So the new regulation, all commodities coming out of Europe are taxed. That's for a few sectors now, for a few commodities, but they will enlarge that. That's something that's certain. So then, actually what's left? What's the big mission? Everybody here knows to do with bamboo. The fantastic thing is we need a lot of bamboo. Everybody has a niche, has a thing where he concentrates himself, and I suggest that you just go on, and then in a few years, then we have really material to organize more conferences and share information, but this one is necessary. You know, in Europe everything is expensive, so we need one. So how do we do that? You have banks, you have investment funds, you have everything, but it's not always easy. Certainly if it's not scalable for new projects, you know how it is. So what we can do now, what we offer, how we want to help, because we grow bamboo ourselves, but we like everybody to grow bamboo with us. We have the plants. We give you an offtake agreement so that you're sure that we buy back for 20 years. But still then you have to buy the plants. And that costs money. Coming back to the farmer, normally a farmer in Europe is used, I buy plants, I plant them, in 1 year I do the harvest, I sell my product, I have money and I can plant again. Now we have to go to farmers, very interesting, and say, okay, you plant the bamboo, and they say, yeah, next year. What do I have to do? Nothing. Nothing. How will I earn my money? No, you have to wait a few years and and you know farmers, they stick to their plan. So what can we do? Carbon removal. That's for us at this moment a tool. It's not a goal. We stay bamboo farmers and processors, but it's a tool that we have and we have to use it as transition financing. Why? And bamboo is a fantastic carbon removal crop. It has, in fact, negative footprint. And in one cubic meter of material, and then we talk about the high density pressed, you know, the strand woven bamboo, you have almost 1.7 tons of carbon stored. That's fantastic. If you compare that with real life, then you're really making impact. Here again, Europe is helping us. All the regulation on carbon at this moment is about carbon removal and carbon farming. So that's a good thing. If you look at the bamboo carbon cycle, then you have two things. You can store carbon in two ways. In the soil, because the plant absorbs the carbon dioxide and stores the carbon into the soil, or in the durable products. At this moment, if we talk about carbon credits, we are only talking and handling with carbon removal credits in the soil, not in the product yet. That's what they call land stored carbon. What you see here are two methodologies or two works on methodology. Now it's land stored. So how does it work? You all know, so I will not look at it. I will not talk too much about this slide, but the principle is simple. We know out of theory, you make a theoretical model out of studies, we know how much bamboo can store, can capture and can store. On those theoretical models, carbon credits are distributed. It's carbon removal, so the good thing is that's the most simple form of carbon credits. What you do is, before you plant bamboo, we take a sample of the soil, we determine how much carbon is in the soil. We send it to a lab. They put their stamp on it, but it's independently certified. And then carbon credits are given out on those figures. The carbon credits go back to the farmer can plant his bamboo or has budget. To give an example, 1 hectare of bamboo, let's say, that's the price, it's between 10,000 and 12,000 euros of plants. That's expensive, but it is like that. While, as you know, bamboo gives no seeds, we have to produce them, they are 14 months old before they go on the land, we have to pay people, we have to pay greenhouses, that costs a bit of money. On average, we see that in Europe, carbon removal or those credits are of course dependent on how much carbon is already in the soil. Why we do the project in Alcotim in Portugal, yeah, that's almost a desert. So we say, okay, this is a challenge, but this is what we have to do. So there's a very low carbon content there. Low carbon content means there's a lot of potential to store extra carbon. So on average, we see that on 1 hectare you have between 250 and 350 carbon credits. If you sell them, let's say, for 80 euros, that's your revenue. And what we do, we share it 50-50 with the farmer. And then we get a lot of comments, oh, you only give 50% to the farmer. What we offer, of course, is we don't ask money for the credits. We go with our carbon manager, goes to the farmer, we do the measurements, we do the application, so they get the credits for free. But then the deal, of course, is that afterwards those costs should be reimbursed. And it's not only that. We also need money, of course, to set up the processing. We can motivate everybody to grow bamboo, but if we don't invest in processing, then at the end of the day, in a few years, everybody is there with his bamboo to BambooLogic, and so we need a lot of budget, and by that, your plans are financed, and we can go on. And by that, we have carbon credits of ourselves. For example, that's a Dutch farmer who planted bamboo for his project. And why do we do that? Because we saw in the markets Dutch companies, for example, who want to support. And support is an important word because there's a lot of stories about carbon credits and it's going up to 200-300 euros per credit. And I don't know, and I will not guarantee anything about it, but I know that there are a lot of companies who want to, one, help with the climate problem, and two, help local farmers or support transition to bio-based materials or whatever. So we have a set of carbon credits from different countries for different projects that we have. Maybe one point on the certificates, because that's always, you can have certificates, and you have gold standards, you have minor standards. We work with ONCRA. So ONCRA is an initiative of the Climate Cleanup Foundation, together with ISN Bank, that's a green bank in the Netherlands. They did all the metrics and all the methodology. It's with ecosystem partners, like they call that, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Microsoft, they are all in the project. So, and it's independently certified, of course. So that's very, very important. We see some trends, that's also interesting. We see some trends in the market. So trends on carbon credits are more and more buyers are moving to European projects. The demand is there. Secondly, they are moving away from the big standards called Standard and Verra. Why? Because new standards are arising and people are demanding for it. What's not good, or not good, another point is that also more and more are changing their strategy towards technology-driven carbon capture solutions. What do I have to say about that? I have a whole philosophical story about that, but I know one thing. We humans are very, very good at finding technical solutions for problems that we created ourselves. But the history has shown us that we are very bad in predicting the outcome of those solutions. So if nature already gives us a solution and nature knows better to do it than we, why would we want, I know why they want it. Buyers want the technical solutions because then they have direct result. And direct result, this is important. So yeah, that's a bit my view on that. Not saying that every effort to take carbon out of or carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere is good, but okay. Is there a market for the carbon credits? I think, and Fred will know, there are like 2,000 graphs like this, and one will be more this and that, but we may assume, and we feel already the trend is there, and this market is going to explode. I think with Hans yesterday, we had the discussion, or we read somewhere that this is going to be a market of $3.6 trillion. I don't know. If we can help farmers with it to grow bamboo, that's enough. Because it's going to change. That kind of credits in the year of or two, I guess, ex-ante credits will disappear. Why? We have to be honest. It is a fraud-sensitive thing. We are selling air, actually. It's clean air, that's the advantage, but you always have to be careful with that. But that's not a problem. Also, if you can work with ex-post credits and off-take agreements, that's also a solution, but it has to evolve. So, I would say that is what we do. Of course, we want to have as much bamboo as possible to make a business for the industry, but we also offer to other parties, other people together with us to grow, to help, to see where we can form a big bamboo block in Europe. And I think we're going to succeed. In the beginning, we had the idea, and you know how it is, you are enthusiastic, and we thought, okay, what's an opportunity? We should this, that, but now we have a plan, now we know it, so the only thing is to put as much bamboo as possible, as quick as possible in the soil in Europe. Do we have time, Joseph? Yes, but normally it will look at technology. So that's a small video, just a farmer organization telling how we see. Do we have sound? No.
Yes, we have.
If you have sound, it's Dutch, but I have subtitles.
Maybe we flip to the original video and then we have the sound?
Normally you should have sound.
But we have sound. We try it.
Okay. You are the boss. The video, it explains a bit about my presentation here, but it's always good to hear that from people.
Bamboe is natuurlijk een plant die heel erg veel CO2 vasttrekt, meer dan zowat elke andere plant op aarde. En als je dat per ton CO2 kunt verwaarden, dan kun je er een mooie verdienmodel voor de agrariër van maken. Carbon credits zien wij vooral als transitiegeld. En dat kan met name heel goed bij bamboe, omdat je zowel in de bodem heel veel koolstof gaat vastleggen als in die plant. En die plant kan dan op zijn beurt weer in de bouw worden gebruikt om een dure vastlegging te realiseren. Wij zien een heel grote potentie, want in Nederland heb je natuurlijk weinig land, je hebt weinig oppervlakte en tegelijkertijd heb je zowel in de bouw als de landbouw heel grote uitdagingen, ecologische uitdagingen. En wij zien een kans om die zaken met elkaar te koppelen, zowel de natuur verdubbelen als de inkomsten van die boer verdubbelen, want die heeft het ook heel erg nodig.
That's it. So, are there any questions? Not too enthusiastic?
We talked about there is a market. Like there is, I think there was in the beginning you talked about I don't know, like an enterprise to talk to.
Why don't you come to the market?
Sorry.
And
Shall
we not invite all the speakers, please, from the panel?
Yes.
Yeah, and then we start the panel discussion. Can you please come upstairs? Juan Pablo, can you come again with your colleague? So we have him as well in the discussion panel. It would be very nice. May you help me with the chairs and put them out in the circle. So can you repeat your question?
You talked about the market in the beginning, that there's still, like, we need a lot of bamboo plantations to cover this market. Which kind of market could it be, or I think I understand what market?
But the advantage of bamboo, as you know, is that there are too much markets. So you have to make choices. And we, at this moment, are directed to wood applications, towards bamboo composites. And I think that those kinds of products are very difficult, interesting for Europe. You have to know the price of bamboo in the composite production price is only a few percent of the whole cost. So if you want to negotiate, that gives you opportunities. Then the second one is the whole pulp, textile, paper discussion, one of the most complex ones. So I think that will take a lot, because every product that we want to be involved has to be completely bio-based, no chemicals. So then you know there are big challenges. And what was the last? The shoots, of course. The shoots are there, and we have to get rid of them. If you have a managed plantation, you have to take them out to give space to the rest of the poles. And there are no fresh shoots, or hardly fresh shoots in Europe. So that's a product. And the nice thing I find for bamboo shoots, also if you have 1 hectare, you can make a nice little foreign product out of it. You can can them, you can mix them. We did all the tests with peppers and oil, with this, with that. So that's something very rewarding. You have a local biological product. So those 4 things are we focusing on now.
Probably still have to research for how to see which bamboo is good for composite, or I don't know.
There's still much research is done, and on those capacities, there's no much of a difference with bamboo growing in South America or in Asia. Of course, we always have to see the same with carbon storage. There are no studies in Europe. So we take a model, and what we do, for example, with the credits, we only give out, or the organization only gives out 60% of the credits. 40% stays in a buffer, then you follow the model. You will never have the model. That's impossible, so it will be better or less, and then you can give extra credits out or keep them if it's not performing like you were expecting. So there's no problem in being honest, I find. Everybody knows in Europe we have to find things out, and that's fine. So.
Is your question answered?
Thank you, and I wish you very luck. You eat bamboo everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions, statements? Yes, please.
Guys, how's it going? Everest Holmes, National Bamboo from the US. And I kind of raised a similar question, or a question on this in regards to biochar, well, in regards to soil microbe life, which Fred was discussing. You know, you guys are doing plantings and talking about carbon offsets, and to my knowledge, you know, soil fungal biomass is a huge component of carbon fixation. We don't know a whole lot about what the potential is there. I wanted to see if you guys were aware that biochar is a potential replacement for peat moss and perlite. If you've heard of that, and if you're going to try to work with that, that's something we're definitely looking at. I feel like there's this issue of fertilizers and, well, mainly, yeah, fertilizers and other soil amendments, with whether it's nursery pot, peat moss in the nursery pots, or amendments in the field that are kind of a hidden carbon cost. It's the mining of phosphate, rock phosphate, for example, which is a limited resource. So how are you guys addressing that, and how much have you thought about that?
Maybe first Frank, because it's his topic, and then.
Thank you, Everest. Yeah, great question. As far as being a replacement for peat moss and perlite, you said, I haven't heard about that specifically, but there's a lot to be learned still about biochar. It does definitely reduce the need for traditional fertilizers and NPK stuff, and reducing the application of conventional fertilizers. Those fertilizers have a significant carbon footprint of their own, so that's an important way to also reduce carbon additionally. I've also heard that, I understand that adding more biochar to the soil actually makes the above ground biomass absorb. It increases the absorption of CO2. And that's something that's not being accounted for currently with the different carbon removal models for carbon credits, but it's something that I think they're going to be looking into. There's a lot of unknowns still about how combining biochar with other forestation projects. It can get really complicated with the double counting. If you're adding biochar, getting credits for that, and then planting bamboo on top of that, and then getting credits for what the bamboo is doing, separating out that carbon absorption from what's going on with the biochar. Most systems just try to avoid that completely because it gets too messy. So they just say, no, you can't. This doesn't qualify for carbon credits, which is the easiest solution for that particular problem. But what we do know is that it does increase the absorption, whether you're getting credits for it or not, whether you can monetize it is kind of a secondary question. But there's a lot to be learned still about some of those specifics, just as there's a lot to be learned about bamboo and which species are going to feel best in which part of Europe, and which species are absorbing the most CO2 under which climate and what soil type, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that answered your question or all your questions.
That's a great response. Thank you. I feel that this is one of those areas where we can collaborate highly. We all need to work on that.
For sure. One of the things we're doing at BambooLogic, besides tracking all the production of biochar and the application of biochar, in order to get carbon credits for it, it's the documentation for everything is really critical to make trustworthy credits. So there's an enormous amount of record keeping. And in addition to that, we also want to be collecting information about the application of biochar in order to study, what did the biochar application of, in Thailand with this type of soil result in with this many tons of biochar per hectare versus that many tons, and how did it work in Malawi with this many tons versus that many tons with this crop versus that crop. There's so many unanswered questions, but I think we have a lot of tools at BambooLogic to collect that information and get some valuable data, which we're definitely interested in sharing and building a knowledge base for that. For sure.
Thank you. Jennifer, you want to add something? Oh, okay. Your question is answered? Here.
I would only say, and all those things, let's do it. But let's do it in a scientific way, in a way that all what we learn, that it's turned around in data, and then we will learn. You can keep discussing about theoretical models, but it's like doing nothing.
Right.
No, it's important, the models, but just do. We have some, and we are very thankful. We have some fantastic farmers, like in France. They are so motivated. They say, we're gonna try these techniques, and we even gonna start more than you are saying on the rest. So that's fantastic. And if you do that in different countries and different situations, after a while we have data, but it should be supported by scientific actions. And that's again a responsibility, because you can easily start things up with research and data. But again, that's a responsibility. That's mine.
Thank you.
Thank you for this question. I think there is a rising of awareness at this moment about the health or the importance of health of soil. Because we all depend on our soil to get nutrified. So it's important to take care about it. Thank you for the question. Yes, please.
Is bamboo, do you think bamboo is a concurrent to agriculture? Or is it a part of ecological agriculture, bio-agriculture? You can see it in this way. It depends of the fertilizer and how you manage it. And where should we plant this? In concurrence to the wood, where there's no wood anymore, or where are the areas and the big hectares? Where should we plant here in Germany, or also in Europe? Where can we plant it?
Do you ask this question for Europe?
Yes, for Europe.
Okay.
That's a fantastic question, because we think that's common. It's not fantastic, but the situation is in 2030 in Europe, 1/3 of all agricultural land is degraded. We cannot use it anymore for other crops. The nice thing about bamboo is, essentially, bamboo only needs water and sun. So those degraded lands are ideal for bamboo. So that's one thing. The second thing is what we heard also in Jennifer's presentation. We did a test. We are going to look now, I think in a month in Greece, with the energy company of the state, reconversion of a mining site. Ideal things for bamboo. Why? You not only plant bamboo, you not only regenerate and clean the soil, but the interesting thing is you build, or people can build their own little, bigger companies around in different sectors. You can make a whole plan, you can regenerate the land, you can regenerate the economy. So one thing is very clear, we should not plant bamboo in nature in Europe. It's an agricultural problem. The rest of the world is forestry, in Europe it's agriculture. That's, again, responsibility. So, good question, and indeed we should not be invading, to use that word, into other indigenous.
Perhaps the European Union could help because of the Green Deal, I think, and also the national government, like BLE here in Germany.
That's coming
the
slowly.
Agriculture programs for biological agriculture. They have programs for land, for development in the land areas. And yes, perhaps as energy plants, you can make it, or biomass plants, you can support it with money from.
Now you're putting your finger on our practical problem. We wanted just only to plant bamboo. But if you start with it, we have to lobby with Europe. We have done some lobbying in Portugal. They have now put bamboo in their agricultural plan for the future. That opens subsidies again. The consumer is ready. They know what bamboo is. The processors are ready. The two last categories are governments and politicians. And I have to say, and that's not a bad thing, the ecologists also, and that has nothing to do with their idea, but it's just they are not informed. Even ecologists. I got a question from a big Dutch organization. Yeah, but 5-year-old bamboo field, biodiversity is gone. I even do not answer anymore. What we do, we are now making a biodiversity study in a 5-year-old plantation. What we know up till now, we see 70 other species of plants in between the bamboo. We see wild orchids. I don't know where you can see wild orchids in Europe, but they are in between our bamboo. We see fungus. We have put wildlife cameras at night. You see boars sleeping there. Birds, insects love bamboo. So that's my answer then to them. And I show the pics and I show the reports, and that's it.
You told that it's only possible to cut it in a rational way, to cut all the whole, but it couldn't be a permaculture, in a permaculture way or a sustainable way, that you put only one or two or some from an area, or you have to take the whole field, 25% from the whole. But it's the whole area will
it depends again what is the goal of the field, but if you do it mechanical, but we are also looking at other systems. We learn a lot of I always forget the English word, the short rotation wood. I remember. The short rotation wood in Scandinavia, they are very close with the birches to bamboo. And they have a system, they have machines, you can go 12 meters, to the right, 12 meters to the left. So we thought if you do a bamboo field now and you leave every 24, 30 meters, 4 meters free, and you can go in with the machines and the arms, we can go far in Europe. We are even thinking about GPS tagging the poles and let a robot go into the field and take out the right poles. So that's what I mean. We really have to think and improve on traditional methods or preservation techniques. So that's possible. But let's say if you're mechanical, you take away 1/3 of the field, but we already did the tests. If you take away the field, the above, bamboo has the power, the most energy is under the ground, it comes back, other plants along, but nothing is perfect. If I compare with maïsdam or grains, yeah, it's pesticide-free, bamboo is pesticide-free crop, herbicide-free.
I think you mentioned the point, sorry.
There's a little bit of work around using bamboo for cattle, for strip grazing, and using it as cattle fodder, so that you can move the agriculture and retain the land and then leave it as well. So there's a little bit of work around that too, using the leaves and the bamboo for cattle and then strip grazing it. Africa's actually doing some work around that. So that's another option in terms of agriculture and aiding the area.
And how's it called? Cattle?
We have to supplement cattle in their feeding, and in Australia we get a lot of arid land because you just sort of get the cattle to eat the grass, and bamboo's grass, so that's why we're looking at that area. And then usually what happens, unfortunately, is that we wait till there's nothing left in the soil, and then the soil becomes arid, and we just move the cattle. So part of the problem with deforestation is the cattle farming, etc. So we can use bamboo because it's a grass. So there's some experimentation around the nutrients of the bamboo and to offer that as cattle feed, if you like. And then strip grazing is about allowing the cattle to feed off an area and then move them and allow the soil to, because it's still new, it's got nutrients in it, can regrow, and so we don't get this desertification that's happening. Africa is starting to do that to restore the land.
The earth is covered.
Yes,
The earth is covered
yes,
always.
Yeah, so rather than taking it out till it
By
becomes the
plants
roots,
or
by grass and stuff. So because berries and grass, there's some experimentation around that.
Thank you.
I want to add something because you mentioned something I think it's quite important. It depends a lot to what we compare it to what we compare it. And we have, especially in Germany, but I think in whole Europe, a very emotional discussion about planting bamboo because it is compared with forest, natural forest. And actually, that's the wrong view, no? Because as you said, it's an agriculture topic, and we have to compare it with agricultural use of land. And as the agriculture, I think now is a very disruptive thing. There's a lot of talks about permaculture and forest gardens and agroforestry, and so
Bamboo also does well in agroforestry, only again if you have to supply the industry.
and there is a big lack of information. So the discussion is more emotional than based on data. Jennifer, you want to add something? No. Okay, thank you for this question. Yes, please. Yes, and then Johan.
Thank you for your presentation. BambooLogic. I wanted to know what species you're wanting to use for construction application. And also, how much water do you need to give to your bamboos in Europe so that they grow well? And we heard in the expo earlier several times that depending on where the bamboo grows, sometimes it has different properties, like mechanical resistant properties. We heard that about guava, but I guess it might be the same for mussel. So do you know about that? Did you plan some tests for that, or for the construction application?
Yeah, it needs time, of course, because if you have to plan in Europe, but Portugal, again, is fantastic on that one. We have newly planned plantation, newly planted, I try to avoid plantations, there's a connotation, fields. We have 5-year-old fields, but we discovered in Portugal a lot of wine farmers. A few generations ago, they planted bamboo for their wine sticks. So the big bamboo before our stand on the floor, that's Portuguese bamboo. That's from a field that exists already 100 years. So there we have, everybody is away. There we have nice examples of what is good. I'm not a big technical expert. If you talk with Jan, and so what happens really with the bamboo if you plant it there or there? Maybe there's data about it. I'm not sure. But there's certainly typical bamboos for wood applications. So you have the old behind here that the Japanese timber bamboo, also is then the most common Chinese. Wadua is South American. And so far as I know, Wadua grows only in South America in a good way. So there are differences, but there are also 1,600 types of bamboo. So we have a lot of tools to play with.
Do you know yet which one you're planning to
But
use?
we are testing with 12. Mozo is surely one of the one that we use the most because they are applicable in a lot of things. But then you have, for example, for paper production, you need the bamboos with a high cellulose content. So,
Okay,
and that's quite studied. And I don't know. You have to ask our grey eminence if there's really a difference in cells, in fibers, if you let a mozo grow here or in China. I'm not really sure, but they certainly will have an answer, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. You
Ouch.
Yeah, thank you for the speakers. I just want to make a few general comments. Yesterday I spoke about science. I'm glad to see that now things are getting done. But we should really think in bamboo as a multi-purpose plant. Even if you have 2,000 hectares, the farmers can sell it to different markets. Who pays the most prices? Which cones are suited for that market? And also it's a multi-useful plant for restoration of soils, restoration. It's not only carbon credits. It's also the mulching layers, evaporation, less erosion, much less erosion, because if you look at erosion figures in agriculture in Western Europe during winter, it's enormous. So multi-purpose plant, multi-benefit plant, so I'm a big supporter of bamboo. And I think now, talking about carbon credits, what they can do is to kickstart. So I look at it multi-purpose for industry, multi-purpose for restoration and farmers, and the carbon credits are just a means to kickstart all this worldwide.
Yeah.
So just
I agree completely. And there are some on the regenerative
You
side.
will stay with us, please.
Sorry. On the regenerative side, there are some nice indirect effects also. If you measure the temperature in a 5-year-old field, in the field and outside the field, then you are like 10 degrees lower. There are even studies, if you have large surfaces of bamboo, you have a lot of evaporation that induces rain. So there's so much to learn and there's so much more indirect effects that we are even not thinking about, but are very worthwhile. It's a year-round green plant, so your humus layer is like very nice.
This is a question I have to
No,
you.
just one more comment. So
Okay.
I repeated so it's told it yesterday. There's a huge body of literature and research from the past. Just looking at cattle, for example, as you said, research was done, for example, in the US in the late 80s, early 90s. But in this case, you have to look very carefully. For each application, you have to do the right research of applicability because bamboo leaves are very hard. They have a lot of silica cells on the epidermis, so that's not always good for cattle. And so for each case, you have to really research what is the best possibility and what's the best number. So there's a lot of research to be done, but let's go for it. Let's start doing it.
I have a question to you and maybe to you as well. In Europe, they now start to sell certificates for beef. bees. Bees. And we all know that bees are very important. So how is about bees inside the bamboo works? I have no experience. You have?
Should come work with us and do the tests. Well, so it could be interesting, I don't know, but it's not a silly idea, I think so.
Yeah, it's a really big business now. It starts to become a big business now. Do you have some information about, for Johan, you have information about?
So I'm just stepping in because it's not my panel, but I know about this question. Starting with the bamboo guadua, it's not only South America. It starts in Mexico, which is North America, and down all to Argentina. So it's Latin America. Okay, that's the first thing. And that comes with the second thing. It's the Mesoamerican bees. We have in Guatemala, just in Guatemala, there are 37 different types of bees that have no sting, but they produce honey. So they are called meliponas in Spanish. It's melipon bees or bees without sting. They call it stingless bees. And in the bamboo, whenever there is a small hole in the bamboo, either or a live bamboo or in a construction, the small bees come and live in that. And I can tell you that because my son, my fourth son, which is an agronomer, he grows bees. And he is crazy each time that we go to the property. He's going, there's a colony of bees, and there's a colony of bees. So we have hundreds of colonies of bees inside the bamboo because they go and live inside the bamboo, they produce their honey and whatever. Of course, if we want to harvest that honey, we have to build specific technical boxes for them. But if you just want them to live there, to pollinate, because they pollinate, of course.
It's about the pollination.
You just leave them there, and in the bamboo groves, they live and they thrive. They're so happy. If you take one bamboo trellis, let's say you open 100 holes, maybe in about 2 years, the 100 holes are going to be filled with different types of these bees, small bees.
Thank you very much for your experience.
Just one addition, the general consensus scientifically is that the disappearance of the bees is mainly due to toxic chemicals used in agriculture. So bamboo helps there stopping them. And it would be good if alongside all these things we were planting flowers that attract bees. And the second problem is that there's Asiatic bees and wasps that really attack our, let's say, endogenous bees and wasps, that also prevents pollination. So it's also like everything, it's a complex problem without any single solution.
Thank you. Okay, and last final question, and I ask you, because we had already your choice. You two, is it a short one?
Line up for the
Okay, we have about 5 minutes. Yeah, so if it's short, we can do 1 or 2 more. Okay, please.
It's not a question. So I'm Susana from Portugal. I'm a private person, so no business, no anything, only bamboo plant. Okay. So as a consumer, so everyone here is produce something, sell something, some for 30 years, 20 years, and I am from outside, so I don't know if it helps. What I hear here is look like sometimes like you're talking with each other. Is your business, but from as a consumer, that what you sell is for me, people like me, furniture, architecture, don't pass to us. Okay, so when I search, exists a huge lack of information. As the bamboo, so I don't know what kind of types of bamboo to put in my garden, okay? Bamboo, in my opinion, to be on fashion. Like Tamagotchi, that thing, the flipper or something, so everyone needs like in the marketing to sell well, so you need to touch in the pain of the consumer. So the bamboo need to be the need, the pain of the consumer. So I don't know who is the one on the top of the bamboo to teach to all of us. Since the plant, if I want to put the plant, why do not talk with the municipal, I'm talking about Portugal, to put this plant in the gardens, okay? To feel that. In the architecture in Portugal, this is what I think. In some parts of historical areas, it's not allowed to put windows. It may PVC or aluminum, it should be with wood. Why not introduce the bamboo in architecture with windows? Because I think this is so much easy and simple to introduce on this. And for you.
We have a client who's not happy with us.
No, to plant in Portugal. You're thinking the farmers, they need to wait for 7 years. It exists. A country of farmers, they are very patient, other Portuguese. They wait 25 years to get corn.
Corn, yeah, I know.
Okay?
But the thing what you say, that's what we all are doing every day. But also, I always, many times I say, our job is the demystification of bamboo. That's our mission. And I'm glad that we have one extra soul now who will spread the word, because it's like you say, information. But it's not that easy.
Spare.
We have the same reaction. We are like, don't you see this is the solution for this, and this, but you know how people are in organizations.
Talk with each other and spare to us.
We got your information. We work on this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay.
So I have two questions. I try to keep it really short. The first question is more from the business side of things. I'm wondering what is actually planned with the post-processing. So we've been hearing about there's plans to do post-processing by BambooLogic in Portugal, but how's the actual timeline? When can we as consumers actually expect to be able to buy, for example, plywood or timber products that are manufactured in Portugal from Portuguese bamboo? That's question number one.
So you are from Portugal?
Kind of. I'm from Germany, but I'm planning to do my own bamboo venture in Portugal, and I would be on the demand side of things. Yeah, I would buy the products actually.
Maybe we know your name.
My name is Mats Miersen. I'm the founder of Border Frames, which is a new type of bamboo product.
Ah, wonderful.
Okay.
Well, okay, to whom do you want to address your question?
It's to BambooLogic.
We have to be realistic. A lot of research is already done, but a lot of research is still to be done. And that's research, that's one thing. Then it's development of your production process. So to have really volume products, we have one problem. We have not enough bamboo. There is quite a lot of bamboo in Europe, and that's also another thing. It's dispersed, it's not organized, it's not structured. But that's the main thing. If you need, like with Deutsche Bahn, we have a good plan to make the train sleepers in bamboo. We have an example that's 120 kilos of heavily compressed bamboo. How many train sleepers are there in Germany? Yeah, that's the same problem with the 90,000 tons. So on the one hand, a lot of work and research has to be done, but the biggest problem is, in terms of European bamboo, we have not enough bamboo. So it will take a few years. Some products, of course, are easier. Shoots, that's the first one. Textile, we can already do some small-scale things, but they are expensive then. So that's the largest thing. There is not enough bamboo. So it will take, I think, in 10 years, we will really see large volume product results.
Okay, so it's about 10 years until the European manufacturer could manufacture.
Yeah, I would just agree with that it's a similar thing everywhere, the chicken and egg dilemma.
Yeah.
They're not building factories until there's enough bamboo to make the factory feasible. And at the same time, farmers are hesitant to plant bamboo because there's not a factory to be processing it. But specifically to Portugal. I understand that it's called Bamboo Belgium, the Ina who makes textiles. She's already using your guys' bamboo. She's got a factory there, coincidentally, in Portugal. She started doing processing for bamboo fabric textiles there, and then they started farming not too far away. And so that looks like definitely one of the product channels for you guys.
That's it. A part of our strategy, the short one, a part of our strategy is to work together, not only with farmers, but with the processing industry to motivate them to plant bamboo. If you want to have your raw material, help us plant. Why? Generally, they have a bit more money, so we can make speed.
Okay, and the second question? Please try to make it short.
Okay, the second question is not from the business side, but as an individual, just thinking about this from an ethical point with the carbon credit system. I'm thinking about if I know it's been labeled as transition financing, and it's enabling the industry to grow very fast. But also I think it could potentially enable bad actors in the established industry, like all companies, to continue what they're doing.
Good question. We have one principle, we follow the Oxford offsetting principles. So that's like a charter out of Oxford University, and there's a list. So for example, we can never sell our credits to Shell, or never sell our credits to the big polluting companies. So again, responsibility.
Thank you for this question. I think it was very important.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the last one for this session. Make it short, please.
I want to share this experience. I started in '95 with bamboo. I'm sorry, I was in '95 Ökobau, ökologischen Baustoff handel. Und die haben uns in English I have produced in Sweden a board. Me. So saying you can't make a board, you have to go to Sony in Portugal, to big companies. It's not true. You can find solutions on a human base. And human base is also, I'm sorry to say that, but it's very important. We are all, the world is here. And you can't say there is not bamboo enough. You can't say that. You must, in Europe you said, but you must learn to work with the bamboo from all over the world. Surely for a board.
That's not our principle, because I talked with the head of the Dutch Architect and Designer Society. They stopped you. They do not want to use, for example, anymore Vietnamese floors. It's dirty bamboo, they say. If you take it from the other side of the world with the footprint, the costs,
you have to dialogue, you have to evaluate, but you have to involve all the people you invite. And Kenya, in Uganda, you demand, prove me, you can give me 2 tons of bamboo, and then I will show you that we can make a product. But you received it, and you haven't talked to Thomas, give him, yes, we made it for you. What's the problem? You must try to work together. Colombia, they can give you solutions. So this meeting in Europe must also be, participants must have more power.
Of course. But our principle is bamboo in Europe for Europe. The footprint
for Europe. This is Marvelberg. Is looking to yourself. I'm sorry, we are the world. The biggest problem of climate change is for the people in Africa, not for us.
In Africa, they are doing very well now with bamboo. And the nice thing about bamboo is on each continent you can build communities, you can create wealth, you can create products for the continent. Why should you transport bamboo from the whole of China to Europe if it's not necessary?
Because we have created a world where there's in Mozambique. In 3 months, the same organ. That's our problem. We export it to Africa. So we must stay alive and say the money you use for carbon taxes must go to Europe, must go to Africa. It's not a way of thinking, oh, I get the money, I do something, I sell it in Europe, and the money which was foreseen for the people in Africa, they haven't. The shell is so big. We use so many energy. We have our responsibility from years. The CO2 tax must go to the countries, and it's not a fair business model to say, okay, that these CO2 values, we use that in our business model.
Up till now, the most revenues of carbon credits in the world come out of Yeah, but
You are not
like
the
you
only
said,
one in the room
everything should
thinking
be,
like this.
should be better.
No, it's not a question.
No, but it's
It's what
important,
Pablo wants to say.
it's important that we base opinions on data and figures. The most revenues in the world up till now for carbon credits are not on European projects, are on African projects, are on non-European projects. What they did with the money afterwards, there we can discuss, right? That's the point of discussion.
Okay, Juan Pablo.
I don't want to create any discussion about this, but there's one thing important. We in the tropical countries produce bamboo, and our bamboo may be 4 or 3 times more productive than whatever else anywhere else. That's the fact, you know. If you take one ship and fill it with 2,000 containers and divide the quantity of CO2 released into the atmosphere and subtract it from 120 tons per hectare of asper growing in Central America or Guatemala, maybe the numbers are going to be positive for buying Central American bamboo and bringing it here. That's the first thing. But everybody has the chance or the opportunity or the right to make their own businesses. Right? But I have to tell you one thing. I do have 5 BMWs in my home. I love German cars. Oh, they're the best. Money is coming back to Germany. So if you buy some bamboo from me, I will buy maybe Mercedes or BMWs. We love European cars. You're fantastic cars. But we are fantastic at making them bamboo. So take us into account. Thank you very much.
I think it's very legitimate. Is this an English word? It's legitimated. It's legitimate. It's very legitimate to have your opinion, and I'm quite sure that you're not the only one in this room. And I have a lot of respect that you come here and you tell us your opinion, even you know that not everybody would like it. And we are here in this room to share all our opinions, and all our opinions are valuable to appreciate, right? And what you say, I think, is also very important, that if I have a company, I can make my own rules. It's my responsibility to live with my rules and the consequences, but I have this freedom to do so. So, in these two sides, we are here to discuss and maybe find solutions, no? So thank you very much for being here in the front and giving us your statement. Yeah, and a big applause to him. So now we are out of time. Thank you very much for participating so much with us. We see us 5:45 for the last panel, and I tell you, it's worth the pain to come back again. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're
Live